Hi there, this is Subject 36 and welcome to my studio. Today's session we're going to take a look at mastering a synthesizer track that I wrote in ode to one of my favorite composers from the 80s, Harold Faltermeyor. So, this is the mastering setup that I have for my synthesizer songs. Looks very similar to most of them. For most of them I have the song in the upper track with just one plugin, which is the match EQ, and that's because most of the times when I do mastering I want to match, to some extent at least, a song that I like, which I think has the sound that I want to strive for. In this case it was the movie track True Survivor from Kung Fury movie with David Hasselhoff. Right in the yeah, so, well, and then I have all the plugins for the actual mastering part on the stereo out. So what I do here is that I first do the EQ matching, and if you haven't worked with the match EQ, it's very easy to use. You just take up the EQ like this. Then you go to your current track, which is your track that you want to master. Here you go, and you just play it. And you click learn. Once you've learned the track that you want to master, you move on and click reference. You mute your song, you just move to the reference, and then you play your reference track, which I won't do anymore here. I've done it already, so it has already built a profile here, and you click learn while you do it, and once you see that the profile is not moving that much anymore, you just unclick it. Then you have the EQ set up, knowing your song that you want to master, knowing the song that you want to reference. Then you move on to the EQ curve, and now it's a match. You can unclick it, then it's just a straight line. When you click match, then you get this one. Now I have it apply 57%. I can go down, but if I go up all the way to 100, here's the difference in the sound spectrum of these two songs. So this is what I have to match in my song to get more to the Kung Fury music. So, but I leave it at 57. That's where I liked it. Then I move on to the mastering chain, and I start with an EQ, and here I do mostly just a little bit of technical EQing. I cut out around 500 again, so this is to get rid of the ugliness. Usually you have a bit of ugliness building up here. I talked about that in the earlier session making this track. I just pulled up a little bit just below 100 here because I wanted a little bit more oomph there. Technical cut 30 Hertz and below. Technical cut, technical slope I would say at 20,000, so we're sloping out here. And then I do a little bit of pushing here as well, 1 dB around 4,000 with a very wide curve, which is common when you do pushing. I've learned that when you push your EQ, you usually do wider curves, and when you're pulling them, you're using a little bit more narrow Q. All right, so that's the EQ. Then I actually do a second EQ. That's something I learned from a online course with Chris Lord-Alge. You can stack EQs to get the sound that you want. And this is something actually I did after a while, so I didn't start with this one. This plugin I pulled out a little bit later on to help shape the sound. And I do two things here. First thing I did was to go for the mid-side processing and to just go for the mids and attenuate it just a tad. you know, 0.7 decibels on the mid, because I thought that the sides could use a little bit more lift. And when I did that, what happened was I got a little bit of harshness around this same frequency that I pushed earlier a little bit, but just a little bit higher there. So around 5,800 here, I actually did a mid-sharp attenuation as well. You see the curve here, to help just remove some of the harshness. So then I get the clarity that I wanted from my first EQ with this push here, which is on 4,000, but I take out the harshness, which was somewhat of a result of that with this one. But now I have both the clarity and not the harshness, which is somewhat nice. And here I use the master bus compressor, the famous one. This is the emulation from IK Multimedia of SSL bus compressor. This is one of the most famous compressors of all times from a mixing table. So the glue preset I think works pretty well. Digs in a little bit, but it's kind of nice. Then after that, the actual limiter, the pushing limiter. This one is where I push the volume up. Usually when I start with this one, I pull it down to 0 dB and then I just work my way up. So this is what I do. I take it all the way down, I work with the song, and then I look at this loudness meter, which is also plugged in on the chain. I listen and I see, and now I see that I'm way below -12 here, which is a lot of headroom actually, and a lot of dynamic range for a modern song, I would say. Metallica's Black Album was one of the first albums to be released with -9 dBs of dynamic range. Today, very many pop records, I understand, are around -6 dB in dynamic range, and some crazy radio versions can be even tougher than that, moving to 3. But that's like, you don't really hear a difference in sound there between a low and between a soft and a harsh sound. But what I do usually here is that I listen and I see where I am, and then I start working with the knob until I come to a level where I think I have something that sounds right and the meters don't say that I'm in a crazy region. All right, so let's do that. So now it's up there. It's very loud, but I don't think the song falls apart. And it's not too close to your face, at least not in these speakers. When I did this, I used my headphones. I always master in headphones. I have these. Sorry, here. I don't know if these are the best ones on the market. A couple of Shure headphones, SRH 840. So I like them. They have a nice sound to them. I use those when I master usually. And then I have different plugins just to analyze the sound to make sure that I have what I want. I set up the track and then I attenuate slowly with a slope here to the end. And then I just bounce it right out as a 16-bit. Let's see, I can show you here. Bounce, project or section, and then I use this here 16-bit 44100 interleaved, and I use the UV22HR dithering type and overload protection only. Yeah. This I forgot this plugin. I finish off the actual plugin chain before I pull all the meters out with the limiter from Logic Pro. So this is an adaptive limiter. If there is any gain to be made in the end still, I actually have this one. Look ahead, 50 milliseconds, gain 1 dB. That's not a lot, so it's quite soft on the sound. But it also makes sure that we don't clip anywhere. So that's it for mastering this type of song. So I do hope you enjoyed this session, and if you want more of this, please subscribe, and you'll get notified when I release new stuff. Make a comment below and let me know if there's anything that you want me to pay attention to. See you in the future.